Good morning, everyone. Just touching base. I think we're going to give another minute or two to let people to come in and sign on. So we'll be starting shortly. Okay. Again, good morning, everyone. I think we'll look to get started. So, thank you everyone for joining me today in this webinar, first part of our webinar series about the journey to a post-COVID-19 economy through digital transformation in the insurance industry. Just a quick introduction. My name is Kevin Keys. I am an account executive here at Navient with a focus on the insurance industry. Prior to joining Navient, I was in the insurance industry for 17 years. And during that time, I worked for a super regional carrier as well as a national carrier. I also spent some time on the agency side with a focus on commercial insurance throughout the entire time. As you can also see here, I have my CPCU designation, and I'm also the education chair of the Cleveland CPCU chapter. Just some quick notes about today's webinar. The audience is muted, and if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat box, and I will look to address them as we go along. So as I said, this is first part of a webinar series with a focus on digital transformation in the insurance industry. Today, we'll be discussing where to start with a focus on process intelligence, followed up with modernize and integrate systems, then automation and content management, and end with return on experience. So for today's agenda, again, it's about where to start. We'll be talking about digital transformation in insurance, why process intelligence is so important, and we'll be discussing briefly about a solution known as Abbyy Timeline. So digital transformation. It's a buzzword that we hear a lot of in the insurance industry and pretty much throughout all industries right now. It was talked about a lot before COVID-19. It still is, and it will be important after this pandemic is done. But, when it comes to buzzwords, I think it's always important to kind of always take that step back and kind of make sure everyone's really thinking about the same thing. So kind of like a broad definition of digital transformation is really about using technology to modify and create new processes, get a better return on experience for customers, and most importantly, create a new business culture. And I really want to touch on that business culture part because I think when people think digital transformation, they automatically assume it's an IT department problem and therefore IT has to solve it. That's not what digital transformation is. It really is a company-wide transformation, and therefore the whole organization has to be involved and has to be on board with digital transformation. But before we kind of really dive into digital transformation, I wanted to just touch briefly on some of the challenges facing insurance, both before COVID-19, during, and we'll be facing afterwards as well. And it really comes down to three big challenges. One is talent, two is legacy systems, and three is innovation. So touching on talent, one of the issues is, only 4% of millennials view insurance as a viable career. And this is something I actually had the privilege of trying to correct. In my current position as education chair of CPCU, I actually am working with some local colleges to try to figure out ways to get young people more interested in insurance, both directly in insurance and those in IT to be involved with insurance. And I can tell you it is difficult. They don't see it as a really good, viable career option for them. And this is a big problem because it's estimated that there's going to be a 400,000 employee shortfall within insurance because of the retirement of the baby boomers. So a pipeline needs to be developed for insurance. And then to make matters worse, those in IT consistently rank insurance at the bottom of their desired industries. And the real issue here is, back in 2018, the insurance industry direct written premium was a total of $1.22 trillion. The US economy was a little over 20 trillion. That's how big and that's how important insurance is to the overall health of the US economy. And if insurance can't get good talent, it's going to not just affect them, it will have an effect on the economy at large. And digital transformation can really help insurance find that talent. Digital transformation can help attract and retain talent by making your business more relevant to employees and also showing that you're committed to delivering dynamic and innovative solutions that improve the lives of the customers. And as we know, millennials they really want to help people out. And that's kind of one of the big things they want to know you're able to do. The next big challenge facing insurance, legacy systems, mainframe. Anybody who's spent any real time in insurance, they've seen mainframe. I was at a carrier not 5 years ago, and this was still one of the major operating systems they used. So it's still definitely out there. But unfortunately, with legacy systems, they have their issues, security and compliance concerns. Laws are going to be written coming down the pipe that are going to be, tell companies how they have to handle their data. And these legacy systems are not going to be able to really be in compliance with those new laws. You have the increased long-term costs of them as well. As we talked about with talent, you have millennials not really interested in coming insurance, IT people not really interested, and you have the retiring baby boomers who are walking out the door with all the knowledge on how to maintain these. It's just going to become more and more expensive to keep these up and running. And then lost opportunities. These legacy systems aren't designed to give the return on experience customers expect in today's economy. And so they're just not up to the task to be able to perform what they need to do. If there's a silver lining to all of this, it's the fact that 60 to 70% of those in insurance are still on legacy systems. So if you're on a legacy system, you're in a good company. But the expectation is that by 2030, 90% of those in insurance will be on modern systems. And I think what's really important there is that doesn't mean that 60 to 70% who are on legacy systems will be around in 2030. And the reason is because one of my favorite lines of Ernest Hemingway, how did you go bankrupt? 2 ways, gradually and then suddenly. That really sums up digital transformation. If you delay digital transformation or you're just not really interested, somebody down the road, you're not going to be in business and people are going to ask what happened. Like, well, I didn't do digital transformation and I started losing market share gradually and then all of a sudden, and it was over. So the third challenge that insurance companies face are innovation. Not just companies, but the industry as a whole. I started in insurance back in 2000 where I was working part-time during college, and I remember walking into the office and having to go to a desk where there was just a stack of quotes that I would take and go back to my desk and manually enter as my job. And as I worked through, I went through the industry and over the years, I saw the innovation that insurance was doing. Going to online, submitting up apps, agent portals, coming up with new innovative type of coverages like cyber liability. And so innovation is definitely part of insurance, but it's going to only become more and more important. And in one area is that AM Best is actually looking to add scoring and assessing innovation to their ratings. So obviously it's something that people know is very, very important for insurance to be able to do. And when it comes to innovation, I think a lot of people are like, well, I got to go make this new app or whatever. Well, innovation, especially with digital transformation, if you're doing it, partnerships can also be very, very key. And one example is Swiss Re and IKEA. I don't know how many people are aware of this, but Swiss Re joined up with IKEA to be able to offer homeowners insurance through IKEA stores. They're planning on starting in Europe, I think also in Singapore, and then the plan is to roll it out worldwide. Well, Swiss Re wouldn't be able to do that, to be able to partner with a non-insurance industry to find a new distribution channel if they hadn't gone through digital transformation. If they didn't have the systems and the business culture set up to be able to look at that type of innovative way to distribute their homeowners insurance policies. And the other thing too with partnerships, that's key with innovation, is if you're going through the digital transformation, you don't have to be this huge Swiss Re company or IKEA. When I was on the agency side, one of the things I looked to do was partner with a local IT security firm that we would be able to offer vulnerability scans to our clients who purchase commercial or cyber liability policies. So again, you don't need this huge Swiss Re, IKEA, big partnership. You can just look for simple ways to do that partnerships. But the key is that if you have the digital transformation, or you're going through it or have completed it, you have the systems to be able to handle that new data coming in and out of your systems and be able to service your clients. And another huge reason why innovation is so important is InsurTech in Silicon Valley. In Ohio, there was a recent article, a recent interview with a gentleman who's involved with InsurTech. He's a venture capitalist. He talked about how back in 2015, he went to a bunch of carriers and presented this brand new technology he had. And all the carriers were really, really excited about it. The problem was when he was going to be like, yeah, great, let's talk about numbers, let's get this implemented. All the carriers were basically like, in his words, this is basically Star Trek technology, and we're 10 years away from this. And he didn't go back and decide, okay, well, I'm going to put this technology on the shelf and put a note in his Outlook calendar to call the carriers in December 2024. He took that technology and started his own carriers, started his own agencies. And that new technology is giving the return on experience that the customers expect. And, Ohio is a great state and they do a lot of innovative things, but it's not Silicon Valley. And like I mentioned before, the insurance industry is, in 2018, wrote that $1.22 trillion in direct written premium. I can guarantee Amazon, Google, and Apple are well aware of that and are going to try to figure out ways down the road to take a piece of that pie. And usually when they do, it's going to be pretty big. So you want to make sure that you go through that digital transformation process, you're able to innovate and really give that return on experience that customers are expecting in today's world. So the question then is where to start. And when it comes to digital transformation, like we just talked about, the three major challenges that insurance faces with how digital transformation can really help out. And then let's throw a worldwide pandemic on top of it. This is going to make the changes 10 times more important to happen, as well as 10 times harder to actually do. But with digital transformation, it can happen. So when we think of digital transformation, there's really four parts to it. One is processes, modernization of systems. Third is automation, content management, and then return on experience. And today we're going to talk about processes. I'm sure all of us have at some point in time in our careers have all sat there and said, why do we do this the way we do it? And the answer, I'm sure we've all heard at some point as well, is because that's how we've always done it. The reality is you cannot build digital transformation off of this. You have to know what your processes are to begin digital transformation. One of the big parts of digital transformation is automation of processes. And when it comes to automation, the worst thing you can do is automate a bad process. Because when you do that, you won't see the return on investment you expected, and it will kill the momentum you've already built with digital transformation. So the question is, how do you determine what your processes are? This is a situation where I'm sure a lot of us have been part of, including me. You get put into a room with a bunch of other people, you bust out the whiteboard, the markers, the sticky notes, and you just start talking about your processes. Sometimes you'll do a questionnaire, maybe bring in some consultants who will sit down and monitor how people do that or do their day-to-day work to get an idea of what the processes are. The major issue here is it's subjective, it's very manual, timely, costly, and usually will only give you kind of a snapshot of what's going on and not really the full picture. So how can you really get an understanding of your processes to begin that digital transformation? That's where process intelligence really comes into play. And the core behind process intelligence is you can't improve what you first don't understand. And process intelligence is really about using the data you already have in your systems the data can really give you the insight the data in your systems can give you the insight into your processes you need to get that process intelligence to begin your digital transformation. So the question is, what makes up process intelligence? And it really comes down to 4 parts. First part is discovery, and this is about finding the common flows and seeing the baseline on performances. Next part, analysis, finding out who's responsible for what and what's the cost. Third, monitoring. This is making sure the protocols you already have in place are being followed and that you're staying in compliance. And then fourth, prediction, using the data to be able to take proactive steps to ensure the desired outcome you want. And so when you think about process intelligence, it has pretty much 4 main goals as well. And the first one is empower business users. As I mentioned before, with digital transformation, one of the big things is business modifying or creating a new business culture. With process intelligence, you'll be able to give your department heads, supervisors, managers, what have you, the knowledge of what's going on in their department and how their processes are really operating so that they can then participate in digital transformation to help automate, look for ways to automate their departments to help move along digital transformation. Another big thing is with process intelligence, you'll be able to build that true organization-wide best practices for your processes. And here, the great thing is that if somebody asks you, why do you do it that way? You go from saying, that's the way we've always done it, to we do it that way because we know it's the best process. And then another goal is to anticipate and proactively take action. And this is really about, once you know your processes, you're able to then, when a new challenge comes up or a new opportunity comes up, you're able to modify your processes easier to take advantage of the new opportunities or to avoid those challenges. And then finally, ensure compliance and eliminate risk. When I was an underwriter, one of the things that always boggled my mind was I would be doing my renewals and just working away, and then all of a sudden I'd be notified that I have to stop doing my renewals because the rate in the system was incorrect. So it's actually the amount of money we were charging our customers. And what's so interesting about that is that when you think about a rate, it's actuary comes up with that rate, gets insight from underwriting as well. They go to the state, they get approval, they come back, they put it in the system, and then the renewals go out. Well, how is it possible in that process, and something so important, they could put the wrong rate into the system and produce incorrect policies and incorrect premiums? That's an example of a bad process. And that's a bad process that if you were to attempt to automate, it would just be devastating. And that's why process intelligence is absolutely necessary for digital transformation. So when we look at digital transformation and process intelligence, we at Navient have a solution known as Abbyy Timeline. And what Abbyy Timeline can do is, this is the solution that will take that data you already have and give you that unbiased, non-subjective view of your processes. And at the core of Timeline is, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, just as it is with process intelligence. And Timeline is designed to specifically be a process-first solution. So when we look at Timeline, it's designed to identify in your processes where the bottlenecks are, where there's significant rework, deviations, manual steps, as well as what the most common processes are. And just a quick note on the most common processes, that doesn't mean it's the right process. And that's very important to know. So just some quick screenshots of what Timeline looks like. This is kind of that discovery idea of process intelligence and what they call path analysis. And this lets you see how often each process is being followed and find the common flows and baseline of those performances. Most companies, when they look at this, they really basically stop the digital transformation and then realize, okay, we need to do standardization of our processes first. And once that occurs, then you start looking at the automation. That's why this step is very, very important. And then there's analysis. This is the timeline, real part of Abbyy Timeline. And each one of these lines, this is an insurance claim case. Each one of these lines is actually a claim from start to finish. And each one of those dots represents an event. And what you're able to do with this is really find out who is responsible for what. And it lets you start discovering the cost of each event and, basically the whole claim process from start to finish. Third is monitoring. With Abbyy Timeline, you're able to really start able to monitor your protocols you have in place. And not only that, but with Timeline, you can actually set it up to notify you when those protocols are broken. And then finally, with process intelligence, prediction, this is a workflow analysis that Timeline will give you. This gives you that complete overview of all your processes. So you can discover such things as like misrouting or redundant steps and begin to look for ways to be proactive. And overall, Timeline really is about giving you that unbiased view of your processes. And, it pulls from your data to enable you to have that true process intelligence so you can really begin the journey to digital transformation. One of the things that we all know, we're all well aware of what's going on in the world. And I think at times we kind of forget that this crisis will end, but it also means that there's a very good chance that a new economy is going to emerge from it. And with that new economy is going to be coming new challenges and new risks, both faced by those in the insurance industry, as well as the clients of the insurance industry. And insurance really needs to be in a position to really be able to help their clients. And as we've discussed about the challenges insurance faces, digital transformation is the solution to those challenges. With digital transformation, you'll be able to attract and retain talent, be able to move to a modern system, and you'll be able to innovate faster to meet the needs of your clients. And like we say here, process intelligence is the foundation for digital transformation. And so just to kind of wrap up, this is where Navient really comes into play. We have years of experience working with those in insurance and helping organizations in the industry along their journey to digital transformation. For all the years that I was in insurance, the phrase that always popped up constantly was insurance agents and carriers wanted to be the trusted advisor of their clients. And being that trusted advisor in these challenging times in the new economy that's going to come up is going to be more important than ever for insurance to be that trusted advisor to their clients. Well, as we've said, digital transformation is key to help you be that. Insurance needs to have a trusted advisor to go through that journey as well. And that's Navient. We have the experience, we have the knowledge to help you along that digital transformation. So, just to kind of wrap up this webinar, again, today was about process intelligence. Next webinar is going to be modernize and integrate your systems. Automation and content management will follow. And then we'll wrap up with return on experience. And so I want to thank everybody and do a quick look to see if there's any comments. I'm not seeing any. Just kind of give a second or two to see if anybody has any questions or comments. Doesn't look like there's any. So again, thank you all for taking your time to listen in on this webinar. Again, we'll have some other sessions, so look for some emails and some invitations to the following webinar. Here's my information if you want to discuss further, whether about process intelligence, digital transformation, Abbyy Timeline. Happy to have a conversation with you about it. Or you can check us out at navient.com. So again, thank you everyone for participating, and have a safe day. Have a great day and stay safe.